Celestial Maiden Mo, the floating cloud mountain range is fraught with peril right now. Even for a golden immortal like yourself, it's far too dangerous to remain here. Duan Yuzai urged. Taoist Master Jingyang and the others also chimed in agreement, trying to dissuade her from her decision, but Mo Wushui shook her head with a determined expression as she said, "Thank you for your concern, everyone, but I've already sworn a vow to remain in the Leisure Valley and wait for the return of a certain person." Yuzuki's complexion paled slightly as he lowered his head upon hearing this. Han Li naturally noticed this reaction from Yuzuki, and his brows furrowed ever so slightly, but he didn't say anything. It seemed that Yuzuki had already confessed his feelings to Mo Wushui, but there appeared to be some obstacle standing between them. Immortal Lord Hot Flame and the others exchanged a glance with one another, and all of them chose to remain silent as well. It was simply not in their place to be commenting on the relationships of others. Having said that, please take fellow Taoist Yu with you to the 100 Creations Mountain. Fellow Taoist Jingyang, he still hasn't fully recovered from his injuries, so he needs some more time to rest and recuperate, Mo Wuwei said. Taoist Master Jingyang was just about to reply when Yu Ziki sprang to his feet and declared, "Of you're not leaving, then I'm staying here with you." A complex look appeared in Mo Wushui's eyes upon hearing this, and she lowered her head as she heaved a forlorn sigh, but didn't turn him down. A slightly awkward silence descended upon the pavilion. "Seeing as both of you have already made up your minds, we won't say anything further. I'll set up some 100 Creations mountain restrictions around the valley later, and I'm sure that'll at least be somewhat effective in intimidating whoever it is that's been wreaking havoc in the valley," Taoist Master Jingyang said. "Thank you, fellow Taoist Jingyang," Mo Wushui said with a grateful expression. Just because she had chosen to stay here didn't mean that she didn't fear death. The 100 Creations Mountain was vastly renowned near Jade Gathering City and throughout the entire Black Mountain Immortal region. So with this restriction in place, they would be much safer in the valley. Yu Ziqi also hurriedly rose to his feet to express his gratitude. Everyone chatted for a while longer before parting ways, and Taoist Master Jingyang flew out of the valley to begin setting up the restriction. Mo Wushui also returned to her cave abode, and before long, Han Li and Yuzichi were the only ones left in the pavilion. Meanwhile, Yuzichi stared after Mo Wushui with a dazed expression, only withdrawing his gaze after she had already entered her cave abode. Han Li heaved an internal sigh upon seeing this, but there was no further part that he could play in their relationship. Even though he had only been with these people for a few centuries, he had found some warmth and friendship here, both of which were extremely rare and precious things in the harsh world of cultivation, and that was why he was willing to help them. Perhaps only by casting aside the fulfillment of certain desires could one hope to regain some precious things that they had lost in the past. But ultimately, such a lifestyle was destined to be nothing more than a fleeting affair. "Fellow Taoist Yu, these pills are for you, and they should be helpful for your recovery," Han Li said as he summoned a storage ring before handing it to Yu Ziqi. "I already owe you a great deal for saving my life. I can't accept any more of your pills. I'll be fully recovered in a few more years at most, so I won't waste your precious pills," Yu Ziqi hurriedly refused. "These pills are no longer very useful to me, so don't turn them down, fellow Taoist Yu. The sooner you recover from your injuries, the less that Celestial Maidenmo has to worry about you," Han Li said as he set the storage ring down beside Yu Ziqi. Yu Ziqi was silent for a moment upon hearing this, and a dejected look appeared on his face as he sighed. "I have only myself to blame for being so weak." "Don't be disheartened, fellow Taoist Yu. You possess decent cultivation aptitude, so it's not entirely impossible for you to reach the golden immortal stage someday," Han Li said. "Perhaps," Yu Ziqi replied with a wry smile. "I'll be leaving the valley now. Farewell and take care, fellow Taoist Yu," Han Li declared as he cupped his fist in a parting salute. "You're leaving so soon?" Yu Ziqi asked with a surprised expression. Han Li nodded silently in response, then promptly departed. Yu Ziqi stared after Han Li for some time, then picked up the storage ring, and as soon as he injected his spiritual sense into it, He was instantly rooted to the spot. Not only did the storage ring contain some recovery pills, it also contained a Bell Valley pill that could stabilize one's Dantian, as well as several types of pills that could assist one in reaching the Golden Immortal stage. These pills should be more than sufficient to help him break through his Golden Immortal stage bottleneck. I'll never forget what you've done for me, fellow Taoist Li, Yu Ziqi thought to himself, gripping the storage ring tightly in his hand as he vowed to repay Han Li in the future if the opportunity ever arose. As Han Li flew out of the Leisure Valley, he was greeted by Taoist Master Jingyang, who seemed to have been waiting for him. You're leaving so soon, fellow Taoist Li? Taoist Master Jingyang asked. I have to leave sooner or later, and I've never been one to procrastinate, Han Li replied with a smile. Are you really not going to consider joining our 100 Creations Mountain, fellow Taoist Li? If you have any requests, please do state them, Taoist Master Jingyang said, making one final effort to recruit Han Li. Thank you for thinking so highly of me, fellow Taoist Jingyang, but as opposed to joining any power, I much prefer to be free, Han Li replied with a faint smile. I knew from the very beginning that you were a free spirit. In that case, I suppose this is where we'll part ways for now. Taoist Master Jingyang sighed as he shook his head with a wry smile. Han Li offered no response. Having said that, you and I are good friends, and competition between the Deputy Mountain Masters of the 100 Creations Mountain has always been extremely fierce, so I need your help with something in the future. You'd better not refuse, Taoist Master Jingyang said. Of course, Han Li replied with a nod. Before you leave, I'm afraid I have a piece of disappointing news for you. I've done my best to search for baleful qi expulsion methods, but to no avail, Taoist Master Jingyang revealed. Han Li was a little disappointed to hear this, and he said, That's fine. That was always going to be a difficult task. Thank you for your efforts so far, and please continue your search. Also, there's something that I'd like you to source for me. What is it, fellow Taoist Li? Taoist Master Jingyang asked. Items that contain time law powers, whether that be materials, immortal treasures, anything is fine, Han Li replied. Having gained 8 time law threads last time, the rate of recovery of the time Dao runes on his mantra treasured axis had increased significantly, and at this point, all of the runes had recovered. Of course, while Han Li was very pleased to see this, his main objective for trying to secure more time law threads was to see whether accruing a sufficient number of them will actually allow him to physically transmigrate using the heaven-controlling vial. Taoist Master Jingyang raised an eyebrow upon hearing this, and after a brief moment of contemplation, he flipped a hand over to summon a small golden lock. The golden lock was giving off incredibly formidable time law power fluctuations, far superior to that of the time-severing flagon and the azure wooden ruler that Han Li had previously acquired, and his eyes immediately lit up at the sight of it. This is a time attribute Immortal treasures. It's only a 9th grade one, but given that it contains one of the 3 paramount laws, its value is equivalent to that of a normal 7th grade Immortal Origin stones. I still owe you 80,000 Immortal Origin stones from last time, and now that you're leaving, I have to repay my debt, so I'll be doing so in the form of this lock, Taoist Master Jingyang said, and it was clear that he was very reluctant to part with the lock, but he still handed it to Han Li. A 9th grade Immortal treasure? There are grades among Immortal treasures. Why have I never heard of this before? Han Li asked with a perplexed expression. You're not aware of this? I suppose that makes sense. Generally speaking, only high zenith cultivators are privy to this information. Taoist Master Jingyang replied with a smile. All treasures of a sufficient caliber that contain law powers can be referred to as immortal treasures, but there are huge discrepancies between immortal treasures. Our 100 Creations Mountain invented a grading system depending on how much law powers an immortal treasure contains, with the 9th grade being the lowest and the 1st grade being the highest. As I just said, this golden lock is a 9th grade immortal treasure. If this lock contains such immense law powers, yet is only a 9th grade immortal treasure, then doesn't that mean that most immortal treasures wouldn't be graded at all? Han Li asked with a stunned expression. That is indeed the case. Graded immortal treasures are extremely precious, and generally speaking, they're only in the possession of high zenith cultivators. As for cultivators below the high zenith stage, the vast majority of the immortal treasures that they own are ungraded. For someone at or below the golden immortal stage, obtaining an immortal treasure is already a very difficult task in itself, Taoist Master Jingyang explained with a smile. I see, Han Li replied with a nod, then looked down at the golden lock in his hand. The lock contained such immense law powers that it outshone almost all of the immortal treasures in his possession, and it was definitely worth more than 80,000 immortal origin stones. So this was clearly a gesture of goodwill from Taoist Master Jingyang. This is too precious a treasure to be worth a measly 80,000 immortal origin stones, but it is indeed something that I require, so I won't refuse. I owe you a favor for this, Han Li said with a serious expression as he stowed the lock away. There's no need to be so serious about it, fellow Taoist Li. I'm glad that it's to your liking. Taoist Master Jingyang replied with a faint smile. He had a good grasp on Han Li's personality, and he knew that Han Li wasn't the type of person who would accept kindness without reciprocation. As a heavenly pill master, Taoist Master Jingyang knew that Han Li would definitely be able to assist him greatly in the future. After that, the two of them chatted for a while longer before parting ways. Right as Han Li was about to depart, a voice suddenly rang out in his mind. Fellow Taoist Li, no matter where you go from here, make sure you do not use that Fireleaf Sect Elder badge ever again. Han Li stopped in his tracks as he turned back to the Leisure Valley with a surprised look in his eyes. That voice belonged to none other than Immortal Lord Hot Flame. At this moment, Immortal Lord Hot Flame's cave abode was completely empty, and only a faint burst of spatial fluctuations remained within its walls, but that also quickly faded. Despite the restrictions present in Immortal Lord Hot Flame's cave abode, they were unable to keep out Han Li's infernal devilish eyes.